From the Hype HQ studio in Chicago, Illinois, it's Startup Hype Man, the podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Raj Nation, and I am the founder of Startup Hype Man. Fast-growing startups work with me because they want to become better storytellers. Whether that's for customers, investors, or a packed audience, they know that story is their ticket to stand out, stand apart, and change the game. And this podcast here is where I talk with entrepreneurs and leaders in the startup ecosystem, ranging from scale stage to early stage, as they share specific strategies that they have executed to stand out across three specific areas: sales, marketing, and people. Before we begin today's episode, remember you can head to startuphypeman.com and subscribe to the newsletter that doesn't suck. You'll get new podcast episodes and timely reads written by me, but also helpful articles from around the web and a notice of upcoming pitch competitions. All right, let's dive in and hear how today's guest is changing the game. Ladies and gentlemen, making her way to the microphone from the south of Sweden and currently residing in Copenhagen, Denmark, she is the CEO of Prezentor. Please welcome Sara Leander-Pehrson.
Thanks, Raj, for that awesome introduction, and thanks so much for having me.
I'm happy to have you. Hey, you said you are a rookie when it comes to being a podcast guest, but now you have the best introduction, I think, for being on a podcast.
I definitely think so. I mean, for future podcasts, there's little that can top that.
Your future webinars, maybe we'll just have that audio clip playing for you when you begin. So yeah, she is Sara Leander-Pehrson, CEO of Prezentor. Prezentor has 4,500 users across the globe from 75 customers, including Circle K, WS Audiology, Boo. They are at 17 employees strong, and Prezentor is the sales enablement tool that helps you sell more. With Prezentor, you can improve customer dialogue, visualize your value proposition, qualify leads faster with buyer intent, ultimately increasing win rates and helping your company sell more. They've got awesome ratings on G2 Crowd. And today, Sara is here to talk about how to accelerate deals in your funnel. Sara, why is this on your mind, and why is this important to you?
Because the faster you can close those deals, the faster you get them on board as customers, and the faster you can grow your company. That's basically it.
And I think it's a really important topic for a lot of companies, because I think deal stallage, if we want to call it that, happens, I think, to everyone. I don't think anyone is impervious to that. And I'm really curious to hear your strategies on how Prezentor has hacked this, more or less. Before we dive into that, let's learn a little bit more about you and your background. I learned from our pre-conversation before we started recording that you grew up in a tiny, tiny town in the south of Sweden. I am curious, A, how many people was that town when you say tiny? And then B, what was that upbringing like, and how did you go from that to, you wouldn't necessarily expect small town Sweden to end up being CEO of a tech company. So what was that upbringing like, and how do you feel it ended up helping or maybe not helping you get into tech?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So to begin with, that tiny, tiny little town was about 5,000 people. Wow. And it was like a little fisherman village where we were really influenced by our history of living from the ocean. And it was an extremely idyllic upbringing, I have to say. I mean, I lived next door with my grandparents, and it was very safe and you know, the kind of place where people don't lock their doors at night. But my parents were entrepreneurs and had their own company. And my father was really the one who wanted to make it big, right? So he had big visions, and around the dinner table, we always talked about sales and how's it going and how many customers we had and so on. So that was always a really big part of my life. And tech was really not on my agenda. I mean, I actually belong to the generation that grew up without social media and those kind of things. So tech didn't exist. So I think that has both pros and cons, being fortunate to have lived like that. But Then when I was 18, I've always had a big fascination and interest for new cultures and other languages and exploring the rest of the world. So I actually left the small town in Sweden at that point, and over the years I've managed to plow through 8 countries and a lot of amazing people and cultures, and that have shaped me as a human. And then as about 5 years ago, I kind of decided for myself actually that, what is the future? Where do I want my career to be? Where will the future take all of us? And that's tech. It's as simple as that. So I decided I was working as an international business development consultant at the time and advising companies on how to grow internationally. And I decided to make the move into tech. And I joined Prezentor because I met our founder and saw that this is something that I just have to be part of. This is so cool. I've been in sales in one way or the other my entire life. And then I encountered this sales enablement, sales and presentation platform that could do all the things. It solved my problems as a salesperson. And I just thought it was so cool, and I had to be part of that journey. And so I joined the company as in a totally different role to head up our customer success at that point in time. And then almost 2 years ago now, we took in a round of funding and new investors, and then I took over the role as CEO to facilitate our growth journey and basically world dominance.
I really want to know more about that transitioning into CEO, but before that, I'm curious to learn back when you were a kid and you were learning like sales via fishermanry, if that's the right phrase. What would you say is like the biggest sales lesson you learned growing up from your father?
So my father or my parents were actually in furniture. We had a chain of stores selling furniture and predominantly mattresses actually. And I remember when I was 16 and I joined the company as a sales rep, and I felt really insecure in selling these fairly expensive products to people twice my age. And I remember this one advice that my father gave me, and my mother actually was both of them. They said, no matter what, you always know more than the customer because you know everything about all the products that we have in here and they don't. So, and then the rest is actually only asking questions and listening. And if you listen to them, then it's a conversation, and then it ends up being a sale because you help them answer the questions that they have. And that was really an advice that has influenced me always. And it's still today. And that is a large part of what Prezentor is also, actually.
Yeah. You know more than, and giving yourself the ability to know more than your customer, right? Through a tech.
Yeah, believing in yourself that you can help someone regardless of your background and their background, as long as you actually honestly and truthfully listen to them and you're curious about their needs and ask questions. And then, of course, there is a lot of learning, especially in more advanced B2B sales, to actually understand what does those answers actually mean, and how can you transform that into proposing a solution that will solve their problems.
Let's talk about where you mentioned how you transitioned from head of customer success into the CEO role. Typically at companies that are around, you're at 17 employees, but typically you don't see until, I would say maybe even 100 or 200 employees would the founder actually transition out of being like the head and pull someone else from the company to actually take on the CEO role. So can you just share, because I think that's a really interesting sort of tidbit that you have at your company. It doesn't happen often. Can you share why that happened and sort of what was the impetus for that? And was it a smooth transition?
I think all of these kind of transitions are always come with some hiccups and its own set of challenges. Whether you're transitioning when you're our size of 17 employees or when you're 200, there's always challenges. I think for us, it was the right time. So our previous CEO, so our founder, Mikkel Fjellskog, he's in the company. And when the company was very, very young, our former CEO joined the company and became a co-owner. So he's basically a co-founder. He came in very, very early. And he had some great assets and is super skilled, but he had a more consultative skill set and approach to selling. And Prezentor is a software company. We're a SaaS company. And we need to sell licenses and software and have recurring revenue and build that up. And when we took on new investors and started our growth journey, then we also identified that, okay, let's make it right from the beginning and take the focus on the software and the licenses. And then we all came to the conclusion that I was better equipped to handle that journey, which is, of course, super fun and an honor to take on that challenge. And I'm totally up for making that and turning Prezentor into the success that I believe that we can be. But if you ask me if it's been an easy ride, no, I don't think it's ever an easy ride for most startups, at least. And there's always things that you have to figure out. And for us, it was actually to a large extent eating our own medicine, if you can say that as an English proverb, using our own platform to succeed in our sales, actually.
And I think it's especially, I think, almost impressive because it takes a lot for a person to remove their ego, especially at an earlier stage of a company, to say, I'm not best equipped to lead this company to where it needs to go. Let's have someone else do this. So I think I'm just very fascinated about that's part of the Prezentor story. Let's kind of transition now into our main topic for today, which is accelerating deals through the funnel. Can you talk through just a little bit better idea? You know, I gave a brief introduction of what the platform is, but can you just talk through a little bit about what is Prezentor and who do you actually sell into?
Yeah, definitely. So Prezentor is, I think you described it quite well, just to give you a little bit of kudos also. But Prezentor is a digital sales enablement platform. We're a sales and presentation tool that helps sales reps save time because they have everything they need in one place. It's always prepared. You always have everything you need for any kind of sales meeting. And the number two is because we also have the possibility to use interactive sales content, you get a much better customer dialogue. It is a world of a difference because you can actually engage and create live customer cases together with your customer, which enables you to drill down so much more and into their needs and how you actually solve their problems. And then the last part is that because we're a digital platform and because we're interactive, we enable automatic data collection. So anything that happens in the sales meeting is automatically recorded and then also automatically fed into your CRM system. So you actually don't need to take meeting notes because the system does it for you. And if it's one thing that a lot of sales reps hate and don't do. It's actually entering data into CRM system.
Yeah, that's definitely the worst part.
Yeah. So with our platform, we try to solve three things. So we make life easier for marketing because they can push material to all sales reps at once and they're always updated. Two, getting a better customer dialogue, which increases the likelihood of closing deals and accelerating the sales process. And three, we help the organization as a whole to ensure data quality and CRM entry. And sales reps are happy that they don't need to enter so much stuff into CRM. It just happens.
Can you talk through the types of companies who are your target buyers? And I mean, I'm going to assume it's B2B, but I see, at least, from what I mentioned up front, Circle K, Ambu, WS, Foss as well as on your website. But when you look at, okay, hey, this is our ideal customer profile, what does that funnel or that audience funnel look like?
So originally we targeted only B2B. As we have progressed and as we have become better at identifying our ICP, it has changed a bit and has become more companies with complex product portfolios. So WS Audiology, for example, they sell hearing aids. They use us in B2C because selling a hearing aid is a complex product where you need to have a really good customer dialogue in order to sell the best solution. Another area where we excel and where we see where our platform fits really well is the insurance industry, where we need to make something complex appear really simple and make the customer understand what you're saying, where you can use a combination of visuals, interactivity, and building the customer's own case in a sales presentation. But then also like Foss and Ambu. Foss is an engineering company, but they have complex machines that can take a lot of different shapes. So you need to identify, okay, you need to help the sales rep identify, okay, which machine in which way, and basically make that customer journey, sales journey, as easy as possible so that you accelerate the sales process.
So it's kind of like if a company, if on their website, they have that drop-down menu at the top of their page that says solutions, and there's like 9 things in that drop-down menu, they would be a good customer.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. With this being your target customer now, how long, generally speaking, is your average sales cycle, and who all on the buyer side, actually not just on the buyer side, on both sides, who all is involved in this sales / buying process?
Yeah, so our average sales process is for smaller deals, it's 1 to 2 months. But for larger deals, then we generally have 1 to 3 months for closing a pilot project, and then 6 months for the actual license deal. So it depends a little bit on which customer we're dealing with. But 1 to 2 months for the smaller ones, and 3 to 6 for the bigger ones.
So 3 to 6 can really test a person's patience, on a salesperson's patience, especially because they have quota to hit. The excitement of getting a first meeting it's such like delayed gratification because it's the beginning of a potentially 6-month climb. I'm curious, with that said, what were some initial assumptions that you and your team had about how the sale would go? Like maybe did you think it would go faster than it was actually happening? And were those assumptions proven true? And how did you, I guess, deal with maybe the reality of it all?
Well, basically, in all honesty, and I'm pro honesty, all of our assumptions were basically proven wrong. And we've learned a lot of things the hard way, which I think is often a good. Actually, it's hard, but it's gratifying in the long run. And we definitely thought that the sales would happen faster. But we did accept that we have a complex product. We involve multiple stakeholders, especially when dealing with enterprise customers. We have our main stakeholder or our main buyer is the sales director, almost always. But often it's not him or her and their team that is responsible for creating the content that goes into our platform. So that's marketing. So then we need to involve marketing, and then we need to also sell to them and drill down on their needs and make sure that they feel the same excitement about our platform and that we can solve some of their needs, as well as the needs from the sales director, who is our primary stakeholder. And then often, of course, in larger organizations and bigger buying processes or sales processes, you also involve IT, because we're a new SaaS platform that needs to be integrated in the IT landscape. And then, of course, you have legal when it comes to data protection and data security. And in Europe, then also GDPR, who is here to protect us, but still it poses some challenges. So for the bigger deals, then yeah, it's multiple stakeholders and it's complex and it just simply takes time. And that's why in our 3 to 6 months, because I completely agree with you, it tests anyone's patience and excitement over a new deal. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to have to split it up. So that's why we always, more or less, when we look at a bigger deal, go for a pilot project and that's also because we don't want unhappy customers. We don't want a bad fit customer, because then they're going to leave us and we're going to invest a lot in them. They're going to invest a lot in us, and then nobody's happy. So with a pilot project, it's like dating before you marry. And that's proven to be really good for both parties, both on our side, where we then we have our account executive, and we always involve customer success also, because they are the ones who enter the marriage, basically, once that happens. And it's really important to have a good relationship already from the start. And then once the buying process is closer to an end, then we also involve our legal and their legal and so on. So, but by splitting it up into, okay, first we have like a part win together with only the sales department that we're targeting, and then we do the pilot project. The pilot project is split up in very clear phases, and then we have the final win.
The idea of splitting it up, I think, is definitely it's definitely smart. Now, when you said your initial assumptions just were all just off the wall, prior to instituting this like pilot program, where were you finding the deals were falling apart? Was it the sales director really wanted it and then marketing didn't even want to look at it, or was it something else?
It fell apart in basically 2 places. And one of them was that our platform was a little bit ahead of our time. So it's a digital sales platform, and in all honesty, it's only now in the past 1 or 2 years that, at least in Northern Europe, that it's really become something a need to have more than a nice to have. So what we failed at initially was positioning ourselves as a need to have instead of a nice to have. And it stalled the sales process and caused a lot of our potential deals to fall through. And what we did, and what is so important, and what was total game changer, was when we started eating our own medicine. So doing the proper needs discovery, documenting that, and visualizing our impact with impact models. So building that case together with the customer. What is the impact that you will experience with our platform? Is it that you will save significant time by using Prezentor in your sales process, and that way you can handle more deals? Or is it that you will have a higher conversion rate than you've had before, and that way increase your earnings? And then plotting in their own numbers and then holding that up against the investment in Prezentor. And like in 9 out of 10 times, the investment in Prezentor is peanuts compared to the potential gain. And once we made this extremely clear to them, and we used our own platform to make value calculations visually, then everything changed. And we started closing deal after deal after deal, and much faster.
It's interesting. So let's unpack that a little bit more. You call it an impact model. Can you break down what that looks like and how you're doing that? I think you said you're doing that side by side, like collaboratively with the buyer.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So basically, it's an Excel calculation. So we go in and we build up a hypothesis together with the customer. One of our impact models is called, what if you could increase your conversion rate with 1%? We know from cases with our existing customers that we can increase conversion rate by much more than that. But by going in modestly and say, okay, what if we can increase it only by 1%? What would that mean to you in dollars and cents? Then we can open their eyes to why it's worth investing in our platform. So we go in and we actually ask, okay, how many sales reps are you? How many opportunities do you have on average every month? What's your average deal size? What's your conversion rate today? And then we plot that in. And then let's say that they have a conversion rate of 42%. And then we say, okay, what would it mean to you if by using Prezentor, we can increase that conversion rate to 43%? And then by using this calculation, they get a number. They get an actual number of, okay, we can increase our sales by $50,000 per month by using Prezentor. And then we basically jump one level down and we say, okay, so if you can increase your sales by $50,000 a month, and then you had the investment into Prezentor would be $10,000. Well, then you basically have it earned back in no time. And before we talked a lot, and we of course presented all of our USPs, and we did everything the same. But then when it came to those $10,000 for investing in Prezentor, for example, just as an example, it was like, ooh, okay, that's a lot, and that feels really scary, and it's a new type of technology, and we don't know if that's a big decision. But when you present the gain first and then the investment, the decision becomes much less scary.
Interesting. So this really becomes an ROI sale. I want to dig a little bit further into that. And for everyone listening, what Prezentor's platform is and what we're discussing today with Sara is this idea of basically how to become better at sales. And another way to become better at sales is through Sales Hacker. They are a partner of this podcast. And if you're not familiar with them, they are the smartest community for forward-thinking B2B professionals. It's over 135,000 members and growing every single day. And it's a community for people like the CEO. So if you're like Sara, or if you're the head of sales, or if you're a SDR or an account executive or anywhere in between, even if you're a marketer, Sales Hacker helps you get better at your job with podcasts, articles, webinars, and research from actual sales experts and practitioners, including yours truly. Every now and then I'm a contributor on Sales Hacker. They've just created a whole brand new website that's interactive. So now you can not only just absorb the content there, you can actually get involved in discussion boards on all of the articles. They're doing weekly Ask Me Anythings with different sales leaders and executives where, for example, someone recently did an AMA on how they build out their own sales process. Someone recently started a discussion board asking what's the best way to break the ice on LinkedIn. And of course, I replied to that and said my Fresh Prince video is the best way to break the ice on LinkedIn. But regardless, there's a lot of discussion-worthy content on saleshacker.com, and you get it all for free. All you have to do is go to saleshacker.com, and that's where you will be able to access the podcast, the articles, the webinars, the research, all that good stuff, the Ask Me Anythings, the discussion boards, for free at saleshacker.com. Once again, all that material, all for you at www.saleshacker.com. Today's show is also brought to you by the Blissful Prospecting Think Outside the Script Summer Virtual Tour. My friend Jason Bay, who kicked off our new season here on the show, is leading this basically sales version of a summer music festival. So the sales version of Lollapalooza, if you will. It's over 40 speakers across 105 days, stretching into early October, about all things prospecting and getting attention and getting leads. So if you want to learn how to send better cold emails, make better cold calls, be better with your LinkedIn game, have a better personal brand, improve your mindset and psychology around picking up the phone and calling a stranger. All of these things, Jason and Blissful Prospecting are bringing in different practitioners, thought leaders, and company leaders to speak to their expertise and help the sales community grow. I recently had my session back in mid-August, and there's a whole lot more coming up through the early parts of October. Heavy hitters in the game: Dale Dupree, Todd Capone, Beck Holland, Anita Nielsen. The list goes on and on. Leah Niederthal. All of that is available, and this is also all for free at tour.blissfulprospecting.com. You can sign up. All the sessions are live and interactive, but you get the recordings as well. But let me tell you, from joining some of them myself, they are best when consumed live. It's 2 to 3 sessions per week, all happening around midday in the U.S. Tour.blissfulprospecting.com. You can sign up for as many or as few as you want. The average attendee is signing up for over 15 total talks. Tour.blissfulprospecting.com. Today on Startup Hype Man, the podcast, we are with Sara Leander-Pehrson, who is the CEO of Prezentor, and we're talking about accelerating deals through your funnel. Now, Sara, before the break, you mentioned how you create that buyer impact model alongside the customer to be able to say, okay, well, if you get, X% increase in revenue and this were to only cost, say, $10,000, does that make it worth it for you? And then they see how the cost investment isn't as significant as they once assumed. What I'm curious to understand from that is, so we did an episode earlier, was it this season or last season? I think it was last season on this show with David Premer, who's a sales trainer. And actually his whole premise was like, he calls it the paradox of ROI selling, where once you start trying to sell on ROI, which I agree with a lot of it as well, is you start to get too heavy into the rational brain. And then the other person tries to make a lot of calculations to say why you're wrong and justify why they're right. Now, it sounds like you're having much different experience in selling based on ROI. Can you just talk through, I guess more than anything, can you just respond to what I just said about how ROI selling can backfire against you?
Oh, of course, sometimes you do have those types of individuals that really want to prove you're wrong. And that, I think that's natural. But when I talk impact model rather than ROI, it's actually because ROI is a part of building an impact model, because the impact that you can create with your solution, it can be many different things. So it's not, for us, it's not, of course, our ROI is always that you increase your sales using Prezentor in one way or the other. It can be by saving time or by actually, closing more deals. But the important part is when doing ROI calculations or general impact models on time or on less sick leave or on any kind of impact that you create from your organization, you involve the customer. And that is, in my experience and opinion, the essence. Because if you make the sales process not necessarily your sales process, but you make it the buyer's buyer process. And ROI, if you don't have your, pardon my French, shit together, when you do an ROI calculation, if you can't argue for what it is that you're saying, then it's going to backfire. So you need to have arguments to back up the assumptions that you're making, and you need to go in modest. You can't blow up a big number and say we can guarantee you that you're going to achieve this, and create and present something that's unrealistic to the customer. You need to go in modest. You need to understand and realize, and you only bring in an ROI calculation when you've done your proper needs discovery and when you understand the customer. Otherwise, don't go that way. But it's a great tool to use, especially in virtual sales meetings, which a lot of us are dealing with right now due to the global COVID-19 situation. Because when you're in a virtual sales meeting, it's just a screen and two people that never met before. And it's much more difficult to connect. You need something to connect with. And then interacting with content together and not just being presented to content allows to create that common base between the buyer and the seller, and neutralizing things to facilitate the buyer's process, and also then actually accelerating the sales process.
Can you talk through, so part of this process is, as you mentioned, like getting them set up on a pilot as well. Now, actually, my first quick question is, does the pilot come before or after the impact model?
After.
Okay. So you do the impact model, then you get them set up on a pilot. How do you ensure then that, I think the challenge with pilot is they have to actually make use of it, right? You can give someone free usage of your product, but I think a lot of times because it's free, they're like, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. And they keep pushing off tomorrow because they're not paying for it. So how do you actually ensure they use it and find success with it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've struggled a lot with that. And I think a lot of companies do. So we basically split up in two also. We have our free trial, which is 14 days. And you can that's for our smaller accounts, or those who just want to get a taste for what is this. And to be honest, we use it as a lead generation more than anything else. As soon as someone signs up for a free trial, we are on them, and we want to create a human connection. So we use technology to bring them in, but we want to talk to them and we want to hold their hand. So we offer them training, we offer demos so that we can actually do these, do the impact models and explain about our platform, because it's a complex platform and you need help to get started and get the most out of it. And then once they have gone through the free trial, sometimes they don't go through a free trial, they just get a demo. Then they might decide on a pilot, and then we actually charge for that pilot. So
okay, so the pilot is a different thing than the free trial.
Yeah, exactly. But the free trial is there's always the discussion of should there be a free trial, and I fully agree with you. It's not always that it's beneficial, and it depends on if you're a fully automated platform where you don't necessarily have a sales rep involved, then you need to be really, really sharp on your free trial.
Well, and I think it's interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like now your primary button on your website is free trial as opposed to book demo. But it sounds like you're kind of just using that as a Trojan horse to get in with the company. And like the second someone signs up for a free trial, you're actually kind of using it to be like, okay, well, let's talk. And maybe the free trial is not what you want to do right now. Like you have access to it for whatever, 14 days, but let's actually take you through our sales process, get you through an impact model, and get you on a paid pilot. It's just almost like, but in the background, they could have access to the platform if they wanted for 2 weeks. Is that kind of right?
That's totally right. That is what we use it for. Yeah.
And I think that's pretty smart, because a lot of companies, and I think it'll depend on complexity of the software and complexity of the sale, but I think a lot of people think free trial automatically equals, oh, they'll just see it, they'll start using it, and then they'll just convert, in a week, in 2 weeks time. But in your case, it's like there's no possible way they could convert without your interaction.
Sometimes they do. They can.
Oh, interesting.
But
Okay.
yeah, so they can actually. You can even sign up with just your credit card, and you can just run with it yourself. So that happens. That's not where our main sales come from. But yeah, I mean, building in Prezentor and creating your interactive content in Prezentor is not more difficult than doing it in PowerPoint. You just get a lot more. But if you're a slightly larger organization, like basically only 10 sales reps and up, you at least will be wanting to talk to us. And we see that we have a much higher conversion rate when we do talk to them. Even if they don't need a pilot, if they just convert, then we have much happier customers and longer customer lifetime value when we have a personal relationship with them.
Well, and I think for those smaller companies that may not be ready yet,
No,
maybe
exactly.
They didn't buy, and if they're not ready yet, when they are ready and they've already, I don't know, even just clicked around your software for a little bit, you're probably first in their consideration set. They're like, oh yeah, what was that? Oh yeah, it was Prezentor. We should probably go back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's also where and that's been a process for ourselves also to figure out, okay, that's back to the ICP, right? Where should we spend our time? And Prezentor is as a platform can be used by any B2B company out there. Like really, it's instead of it's one collecting your content in one place, pushing it out, and creating a great customer experience. Anyone, but which types of companies do we really want to invest in and want to be like 100% sure that we will give the best possible buyer experience and get them through the sales process? Yeah, so we have the free trial to enable anyone to use our platform, but where we invest more, of course, in those who match our ICP.
I've got a final question here before we hit our wrap up. In this process, actually, I should say two final questions. And my first question is, what if their sales reps are just bad? And, like your stuff can help, but what if they're lacking like base skills to be able to succeed at their job? Like when you get to that pilot stage, what's the understanding of how much is their responsibility versus how much is your responsibility?
Yeah, so that's definitely been a learning process for us also. So in the pilot program, we set up very early on in the kickoff meeting, we agree on the success criteria together with the customer. And those, we can come with our suggestions, but the success criteria definitely depends on the company and where they are at and the specific set of challenges that they have in their sales and where they believe that Prezentor can help them. And then again, we always try to pull down expectations so that because we made that mistake in the beginning too. We kind of blew up expectations, like, oh, we're going to help you with everything. But no, okay, we go in and we want to solve this, and that. And what are your expectations? We ask them straight out. And then we basically come back with if that's realistic or not. And if we should, downscale it, or even if we say, okay, maybe we can expect more. So that it is really collaboration between us and the customer. And then we use our experience from previous pilots and previous companies to know where those expectations should be set in order to ensure that the customer ends up being happy and gets the value. And then I like your comment though about what if their sales reps suck and they just can't close deals. Well, so what our platform does is that we go in and regardless of where you are at the scale, we should be we know that we're able to lift you. So even if you're like on a 1 out of 10, well, then we can get you up to at least a 2. Yeah. If you're at a 10 out of 10, then it's maybe difficult to make you better. But according to all the statistics out there, it's like 2 out of 10 sales reps that are really good. The rest definitely have room for improvement. at least the 8 out of 10, we know that we can get at least one step up by using our platform. And that's the conversation that we have with our customers. And what would that one step up mean to them in dollars and cents?
And with all of these improvements to your sales process, how has it accelerated it for Prezentor? What was the previous average length, and is it now down to 3 to 6 months, or you've actually condensed it even more than that?
So we used to have a sales process of 6 months to a year, even with our larger accounts, and that is now down to 3 to 6 months. And then for our smaller accounts, we can close in anything from a week to 2 months, depending on.
Well, that's impressive, because when you go from a year and you cut that in half, you can actually double your revenue in a single year then, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. Where can our listeners find Prezentor? Where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
So follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just search for Prezentor with Z, or head over to our website, prezentor.com. And there you find all of our contact details. You can sign up for a free trial, but do expect to be contacted by us.
To close out, we'll each give our top 1 or 2 lessons or takeaways for the listeners based on our discussion today. I'll go first, then I'll toss it over to you. Our topic today was accelerating deals through your funnel. For me, I think one of the big things that this made me think of, often when I'm working with sales teams and I'm helping them improve their sales acumen, when there's multiple stakeholders involved, I think a lot of times the sales team's default is to just be like, and they know other people need to get involved. They'll just kind of ask something like, okay, so who else is involved in the buying process? Which is it's like a flat question. Oftentimes the person doesn't totally know who else should be involved on their side, or they're just not going to tell you that with that kind of a question. So depending on the situation, a lot of times I'll recommend to get into better get in with the company is ask one of 2 ways. Ask, or say, hey, so typically when we have these kinds of conversations, these other people are also involved, and this person would be involved next. Does that make sense for you? Or does that sound like a plan for you? Do you see that happening here? The other way that I'll often recommend is to say, hey, so I know we've had a great conversation. Typically there's other people that need to get involved as well. Who's going to be pissed off if they were not informed about this kind of a thing? And that's just a better way to get people thinking about who should be involved, is say, who's going to get mad if they are not brought into this?
I think that's a great recommendation. I mean, it makes a world of a difference to be so upfront with that. And it's because then you basically cut the bullshit and you say, okay, I'm not going to waste my time here because what I'm offering is serious, and I know the value of it, and I want you to take me seriously also. So I think that's brilliant.
And on your end, your top 1 or 2 lessons or takeaways for the listeners today?
That would be to identify your ideal customer profile as early on as possible, because when you target too widely, you run the risk of having stalled opportunities in your sales process because they don't really see the value, or your solution doesn't really fit them, and then you waste your time on customers that might never going to buy. So identify that as early as possible as you can, especially when you start up a new company. It's not always easy, but if you keep it in mind already from the beginning, it's definitely going to help you. And then number 2 is figure out the value that you create for your customers and visualize it in one way or another. And then work with these impact models that I talked about before. And it doesn't matter what the value is. It can always be visualized or numerized in one way or the other. because the better you do that, the deeper of a dialogue you can have with your customer faster, and that also means you can close the deal faster.
My final question, which is how we end every episode of this show, fill in the blank, Sara. Entrepreneurship is blank.
Challenging status quo. Definitely. Believing in that something can be done better and daring to work to make that happen.
Believing something can be done better and daring to make that happen. Challenging the status quo. I love it. Sara Leander-Pehrson, thank you so much for joining us today on Startup Hype Man, the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
That wraps up today's conversation. Did you like what you heard? Startup Hype Man, the podcast, is available on every major platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and more. So be sure to subscribe on your platform of choice and leave a rating and review. Do you want to be an upcoming guest on the show? Email media@startuphypeman.com with your idea, and my team will review. Our theme song is Change the Game by Jay-Z, all rights owned by Rockefeller and Def Jam Records. And hey, if you want to work together on making your startup story the only one that matters, email me at rajiv@startuphypeman.com. That's RAJIV@startuphypeman.com. Well, that'll do it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you to today's guests for joining. You have been checking out Startup Hype Man, the podcast. I'll catch you next week. But in the meantime, word up, raise up.